So we're here at the Impressions Expo 2023. I want to go around and showcase a lot of the basics for everybody in the Printavo umbrella to understand what we're talking about. Some of the nomenclature, the jargon, if you will, to understand the decoration methods, decoration types, some of the processes, so it's not so much of a foreign language to you. You can kind of put some images to the words you might be hearing to help you understand everything about our industry the best that we can. So we'll take a look at all the process, kind of go in depth, and see if we can help. Let's go. All right, so what you're seeing here is what's often considered a live print setup, right? It's gonna be a single station. You might see a 4-color station as well, a 4-station. Traditionally, a single station, single color. We can go ahead and just print real quick and put it on a small dryer. This is gonna be great for activations. Things like this, there's a booth, they can actually live print a 1-piece shirt and put it through a small dryer and get it right to you right then. So live prints, something you're gonna hear a lot of, and this is a good setup for that. So one of the big players in the industry is a company called Rock. They are going to be a press manufacturer. You can tell them from their staple color green. These are automatic presses that are going to help a shop run at scale, usually somewhere between 300 to 700 per hour, depending on your press itself. They also have dryers, some other equipment, but this is definitely one of the staples that you're gonna see in a lot of larger shops or shops that are getting into automation into their equipment and their manufacturing. Rockdale's a partner of Printavo, a lot of good synergy there, so definitely something to keep your eye out for and talk about with customers. All right, so another manufacturer that you're gonna see a lot of or hear a lot of in the screen printing industry is Anatol. Anatol is also a Chicago-based company, also in Poland, but they have a traditional red machine. So here you can see these red machines. They're very known for their all-electric presses that run almost silent. Right here behind me, you can also see a manual press. So we're gonna be able to have multiple colors, multiple stations, and this will be a lot more of an entry-level press for a shop. Now, larger shops will still have this because oftentimes 1-color, 2-color, lower counts of shirts, it's more efficient to run on a manual press. So the big automatic ones, you load the shirt, it spins around, prints the inks, you unload it. With this, you would actually be pulling that squeegee and pressing the ink to the screen manually. So again, you're gonna see bright red machines like this, Anatol, they've got manual and automatic equipment as well. So over here, we're looking at a piece of equipment that's going to be an autocoder. What an autocoder is going to be is an automatic way of actually coding your screens. What you're seeing here is emulsion on top of mesh, right? So where you're seeing this orange is actually emulsion that is a semi-solid that is applied traditionally by hand with something like this, where you can actually code it by hand. This is an autocoder where you can fill this up, you can actually latch these in, and it will actually coat the screens with the robot, essentially. You load to, you hit a button, that person can now turn around and do something else, while the, essentially, robot coats that screen, right? Now, a screen wouldn't look like this coming off the machine. You'd be coating the screen, it would be solid like this. You can let the emulsion dry, and then expose that, right? This is something called an autocoder. A lot of manufacturers make them. This is definitely one of the ones you'll see in the industry. So when you hear people talk about darkroom and talk about automating their darkroom, an autocoder is a big part of that. So what we're looking at right now is what's called a laser to screen. This is emerging technology. It's very new to the industry. So these screens, again, we're seeing images already on them because it's display purposes. Normally they would have just that emulsion only on the screen. But what would be happening then is this laser is actually going in, and for lack of a better term, etching in the design. It's using light to actually expose the emulsion to essentially cook in the image. Now again, you're seeing the image already knocked out. You would not see that normally here. You would just see the laser moving up and down, exposing or cooking the part that it wants to have held, and everything else stays unexposed. It would then go into a water rinse where the area the laser did not touch falls out, and that is now your stencil. So again, this is emerging technology. If you ever hear someone talk about LTS, laser to screen, this is going to be a similar, there's a couple manufacturers of this, but this is going to be one of those ideas of what you see. Again, automating the darkroom process. Less consumables, higher price point, but really, really cool. Traditionally something you're going to see in larger shops that are a little more scaled because it's an expensive unit, but emerging technology we're going to see a lot more of in the coming years. All right, so here we are at the M&R booth. M&R is also based out of Chicagoland. They also have some manufacturing in other parts of the world as well. Now, M&R is very well known by their bright blue color they have. They've got a little bit of everything. They've got automatic presses, manual presses, digital equipment, kind of the full kit and caboodle. One thing I want to point out while we're over here is I want to talk about this machine right here. Now this is what's called a direct to screen, right? So there are a few different options for getting the image onto your screen, right? So one way is called laser to screen, where a laser etches. Another way is using something similar to this. This is a film that we can see here laying on top of the screen. A film is going to be used not on a machine like this. We printed from a traditional printer, and these films will be lined up onto your screen, and then you line those screens up on press. Now this machine is called an iMages. What this does is actually jets that ink out directly onto the screen with your emulsion, so you don't need to worry about having a film anymore. It'll inkjet that out, then you'll expose that screen with an exposure unit, and that'll essentially cook everything outside of where that ink is, which will then wash out with water. You dry your screen, you hit press, right? So again, direct to screen, you either see ink, you might see wax units, or you'll see laser to screen, which is another emerging technology. All right, so what we're looking at here is something called an AutoReclaim. So what you're gonna see is you got screens that after you use them, they're going to have ink, they're going to be with the old emulsion and the old image. You need to be able to take this screen from this back to a clean, ready for use screen. This is a type of machine that can do that. There's different ones in the marketplace. This is one of the new emerging ones getting very popular, right? So you're able to take a screen. Some of them are gonna have a dip tank in the front end. Smaller shops will only have a dip tank often, and they'll use a chemical bath to then strip off the emulsion and the ink. This one, it goes in the chemical bath first, then it goes into this automated machine, and it has a series of pressure washers as well as some chemistry that gets jetted out, and it comes out the other end as a clean screen ready to go again. It may have to be dried, put on a drying rack, so there's no water left on it. You can then emulse it, so emulsion again, so coat it with a manual coder or an autocoder, and then re-image that screen and use it over and over again. So again, this is called a AutoReclaim. It's something that you're gonna see a lot of shops that are medium, growing to large, using to automate. When you have automation, you can have a person that loads this machine, hits a button, and goes and does other tasks. So instead of having one person manually reclaiming all day long, very physical and kind of a fixed output, you can have somebody doing a higher output, less physical, and handling more processes. Better bang for your buck. You do have to invest in the systems and technology first, though. Okay, so if you're not able to afford a larger piece of equipment like that, you're usually gonna be using, say, washout booth and something like a dip tank like this from EasyWay. What this does is you're able to take your screens and you put your dirty screens inside of this. It's going to have a chemical bath. Stays in there for about a minute, it comes out, you can pressure wash all that emulsion and ink off of your screen, and then you can use another chemical to finalize and dehaze and degrease that. Some shops will use a dip tank, others will only spray chemistry and scrub from there. Either way, every screen print shop needs to take their old screen and get it ready by reclaiming it so it can be used as a fresh screen again. All right, this is gonna be like the most basic part, but we need to make sure we know this, right? When we're screen printing, we're working with ink. We're never calling it anything other than ink, right? Now with ink, we have different kinds of ink. There's water-based, there's plastisols, there's silicones, and there's different subsets of each of those, right? But we're always gonna call it ink. There's a couple core major manufacturers in the industry of ink. Avient is one of the parent companies that manufactures many of the popular options, including Wilflex, Rutland, and Union, right? So whenever we're talking about print shops, talking to printers, we're gonna refer to it as ink. Now with ink, we've got different things, right? There's special effect inks, glow, sparkles, things like that, and traditional spot colors or process colors as well. Different opacities, different ways to achieve a different actual print. All right, so another very popular decoration method in our industry is called DTG. That is short for direct to garment. So Epson is one of the big players in that game, and the way this works is it's essentially a high-end print head. You're able to load a shirt. Now, these shirts are first pre-treated, where it's gonna go through and actually have a chemical sprayed onto it to help with adhesion of that ink to the substrate. You can also purchase shirts that are pre-treated ahead of time from many of the wholesalers. It's gonna go into this machine, and if you look close, you can actually see it is starting to have this print head go back and forth, much like a traditional printer you might be used to seeing, right? Now with this, it looks like it's gonna go ahead and print the white out first. It is actually printing an underlay white. When we're printing on dark shirts, it doesn't matter if we're doing with DTG, direct to garment, or we're doing screen printing. If we want to have optic vibrant colors, we're going to have to first print a white underlay. This machine is currently printing that white underlay. It's then going to go ahead and take it back, and it's going to print the colors on top. Now, there are larger machines that can do that all in a single pass. It's all going to be a price point of how big or how small. Now, this is not only a machine you'll see in large shops. This is a machine you'll see in many size shops. You'll often notice that a lot of people's pricing matrices for screen printing will start at 12 or 24 because it's not really economical to make a single shirt screen printing, especially many colors. This is a good tool to solve for that, right? You're able to say, I can do 1 or 2 or 3 shirts, and I'm going to use this type of decoration of direct-to-garment. Now, you can scale this, and there are plenty of shops doing hundreds and thousands of direct-to-garment, but again, a different style of machine to accomplish that. So here we can see this looks great. It's done the white, it's now pulling it back. It's going to do its second set of passes, where it's going to lay down the color being inkjetted out onto that shirt. From here, it'll have to go into usually a heat press or a conveyor dryer, and you're able to now fulfill 1-piece, 2-piece, or even do full production runs with this type of work direct to garment. So here we can see it coming out for the second time, and now we've got color being laid down. It is ink jetting out cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Oftentimes it looks like it also has a little bit of orange and green in there, so hexachromal, and it's going ahead and laying down that fun color. So just hitting the print button with a pre-treated shirt, we've got a one-off pretty quickly. Look at that. All right, so what we're looking at here is what's called DTF, or direct to film, right? This is definitely another emerging technology. It's been a lot more recent in the years to kind of come out and be a viable option. What you see here is finished product coming out, being rolled up onto this reel. If we look back here, what we're actually seeing is a print head that is printing out in a bit of a reverse order. If you notice in the further back, we're seeing the colors. Colors being printed, then a white is being printed after that. So it's kind of like the opposite of when you're printing a shirt. You'll put your underbase down first, then you'll put your colors on top. And this is going in a reverse order. It's color down first, and then white after that. Then what this unit's doing is actually brings it in, and they have a transfer powder that's being sifted through and being applied onto the back of that wet white ink. This also has a built-in dryer that then heat seals that powder into the actual DTF direct-to-film print. It then comes out onto this take-up reel and is taken up. You can then cut these out and you can heat press this onto almost any blank material, right? This works well on cotton, poly, blends, and almost everything in between. Most any flat surface, this can be heat pressed onto, and it works well. So, if you hear people talk about DTF, they may be doing this in-house. They might also be sending out for direct-to-film transfers from many different vendors, Supacolor, Howard Transfers. There's a whole lot of them, right? So this is what is DTF, or direct-to-film. So a big thing happening in our industry right now is a lot of digital immersion, right? So what we've got here is something called the M&R Digital Squeegee. So this is a hybrid technology that uses screen printing as well as digital printing. So what's happening is we're actually screen printing our underlay, or our underbase white underneath the image. It is then going through and going around. After it's then put with a pre-ink that allows for the ink jets to come on top of it, you can then see inside here, this large digital print head is going to inkjet out onto this actual shirt. So right now it's only white. We can actually see it's going to start making multiple passes, and we're starting to see color actually getting dropped down. This is bringing it together, screen printing as well as direct to garments, and allows for a higher throughput and a lot more opportunity for customization on screen printing by adding a digital element. With this, you're able to get a lot of colors without having to make as many screens. There's of course a lot of benefit to this, and something that we're seeing a lot of people in the industry start to really get into. It's been around for a few years, and it's growing rapidly. Digital Squeegee against hybrid printing. We're seeing lots of manufacturers make them. This is one of the original ones in the marketplace, and something you'll hear a lot of larger shops talking about. All right, so there's obviously a lot of different manufacturers of apparel in the industry. One of the staples is a company called Gildan, or Gildan, depends who you talk to, right? So Gildan is a massive manufacturer. They grow most of the cotton here in the United States, and then a lot of the manufacturing happens near shore in Honduras. So Gildan has got a giant booth. Most t-shirts you're going to go ahead and buy when you go to a concert, they're almost always a Gildan, right? Now, right next door, we also have a company called American Apparel, who Gildan purchased, I think almost like 7, 8 years ago, right? So that's American Apparel. They're part of the Gildan umbrella. There's also another company called Comfort Colors, which if we actually point around the corner over here, this nice, big, pretty, colorful booth in the back over there as well, right? So Gildan, as opposed to just being just Gildan, they actually own many other brands inside of that network, right? So a lot of the shirts that you're gonna see out and about, retail, wholesale, at different concerts and events, oftentimes do come from the company Gildan. They're one of the heavy hitters, not the only, but one of the heavy hitters that are out there in the industry. All right, so we're standing in front of what's called an embroidery machine. This one is a 6-up. It's got 6 stations in which you can load different pieces of apparel. In this case, they're currently doing hats. You can do hats, you can do polos, sweaters, anything that you can actually put into a hoop. A hoop is how you're going to actually hold it from moving around and load it into the machine. Again, this machine's doing hats. What embroidery is actually sewing and stitching out a design, multiple thread colors, and the machine is actually at a quick pace putting all the stitches inside of that, right? By being able to do this, we're able to get a full multicolor embroidered hat, left chest polo, a lot of high-end decoration. You're gonna see a lot of times corporate America has a lot of high-end performance wear, things where they have a higher-end detailed embroidered logo. It is considered a little bit more of a higher-end decoration, therefore you can charge more, right? Something like this, you are able to do 6 at a time, so you're able to get a pretty decent output. Bayardin is one of the major manufacturers, so you might hear that name in the industry as well when it comes to doing embroidery in a shop. All right, so unlike the one we saw with hats, this one's actually going to be doing a larger flat stitch. So this is the back of what looks like a Letterman jacket that's pulled out into a larger hoop here. This hoop is what's holding it flat, and it's able to stitch this out. So different designs have different types of stitches, different complexity, different colors. Embroidery machines are able to handle a lot of this. There's different manufacturers, different types. This would be a 3-head, meaning it can do 3 at a time, depending how large the actual imprint is. So again, embroidery, another high-end decoration, oftentimes found in a lot of print shops. Another decoration type we'll see oftentimes is banners and signage. What we're looking at here is called a wide format digital printer. This one in particular is going to be able to print high quality posters, right? So with this, you can print things like banners that you might see hung up outside, yard sign banners. There's different kinds of digital equipment that'll actually print all that type of work. We might see where shops have something similar to this, and they are doing car wraps, banners, poster work. Oftentimes they need a plotter and a cutter, so they can actually cut out information as well too, so they can make stickers. So that's gonna be digital on a wide format printer. All right, so another part of our industry is gonna be poster printing. Now, this is not something we're gonna see a lot of with our customer base, but you will see some shops that do it. It's a fine art craft, something I personally love a lot. This is what it's gonna look like. So you're still gonna use screens we're used to on traditional textile, but you're going to do them almost always one color at a time with something similar to this, right? Where it's gonna be one screen on paper, it'll go into a drying rack and they'll do one color, dry that ink, and they'll register up all of them. So if you got 100 prints and it's 3 colors, you do the first color 100 times, let them air dry. Second color, let them air dry. Third color, let them air dry. Now, large scale, they might have different inks, UV inks, they might even be able to do multiple colors all in one set. Traditionally, it's a one color at a time, push through, and ends up with super awesome prints, art prints, such as this, where they're actually screen printed by hand and just all around badass. Using a wide format sublimation printer, so a digital wide format printer, oftentimes you can have ones with traditional inks that'll be good for posters or good for banners. You can also sub that out, not easily, it's usually a one-time only. You'll then say, I want this to be a sublimation printer, different kind of ink. You'll then use that wide format printer to print out with sublimation ink onto transfer sheets. With those transfer sheets, you can then do things like heat press into promotional items. So tumblers and mugs, things like that, you can then heat press that in there, and that sublimation ink will actually bond into polyesters, some porcelains, different things like that. So a lot of sublimation things might be done with a sublimation printer and put onto promo products. Other things will be using on special jigs that are actually going to digitally print right onto things like keychains and other promotional items.